Hey, good to see you. This is On the Clock Instant Reaction brought to you by PJ Wheelahands. The Eagles have their second selection of the 2021 draft. We're here to break it down. Danny Pommel's, Barrett Brooks, and Ray Didinger. And gentlemen, a little bit of surprise here as the Eagles, in your estimation, just from our talking before we came live here, picked the second best available center and passed on the first available one. Landon Dickerson is the selection at number 37, a center from Alabama. Ray, I want to come your way first because your reaction once you heard the pick was pretty visceral. What is your reaction to the selection?
Well, I'm surprised for a couple different reasons, Dan. I think we're all in agreement that this team still needs help on defense, and particularly the defensive secondary. And I thought this was a great opportunity to go get a defensive back. I'll put out the name Asante Samuel Jr. just for one. And I really thought, I wasn't even thinking about an offensive player right here, to be honest with you. I thought they were going to go get the secondary player. So this surprises me. Landon Dickerson is he's a massive guy. He's 6'6", he's 325 pounds, and was a good player at Alabama. I'm not going to say he wasn't, but boy, he has a long history of injuries. And it happened again this year. National championship game. He tore up his knee in the national championship game, and they took him off the field on a cart. It's like the third time it's happened in his career down at Alabama. He has a long medical. And it just surprises me. I knew somebody would draft him. I frankly didn't think he'd get drafted this high. And I didn't think he'd get drafted by the Eagles. The Eagles are obviously thinking in terms of Jason Kelce is going to play this year, but they're aware that he's closer to the end of his career than the beginning. I understand that. You wanted to go get a good player for that spot because Kelce has been so good there for so long. And when this guy has played, he's played well, but the medical history, Dan, really does concern me.
Barrett, this is your kitchen, man. You were a second-round pick as an offensive lineman, and here, and 6'5". So here is this guy coming in, Landon Dickerson, with the similar attributes. You were caught off guard a bit by this selection too, a bit puzzled by it.
Yeah, because I really feel as though Creed Humphreys was probably the best center that I looked at this year. He's everything you want. He fills all the boxes as far as a leader, a guy that's going to go out there and almost play like a sumo wrestler and fight. But, I'm going to say this. He's still a good player. But, just like Ray said, I think his ability to stay on the field is going to be in question a lot of the time. For the last couple of years, he's been on IR, and they don't call it IR, but he's been out the game with season-ending injuries. I like him. I like what he does. To be so big, he's kind of fluid in his movement. He can run block. He releases his hips at the point of attack. He can drive block. A lot of things that when he's on the field, he does very, very, very well. On the field, he's a leader in the middle of that offensive line. Other guys in the huddle look to him for inspiration as far as getting, things going on the offensive side of the ball. If things aren't happening right, they do look for him for that leadership. I think this is more of a Jeff Stoutland pick, offensive line coach for the Eagles, as opposed to, getting the best, position center available. You could have done better. I think so. But I think the comfortability with being around Stoutland and understanding, he has a connection with Alabama. And, look at it. That's the way it's rocking right now. Alabama center, Alabama, a former Alabama quarterback, Alabama #1 wide receiver. Maybe they're starting to see something with drafting in the SEC, especially at the national championship team. It's not bad to go out there and get and pick from the best, team in the country as far as college football. But I think they could have been done better with Creed Humphreys and his ability to play center. He's the same guy, but he's a little more healthier. Same guy. He's just not as massive as he is, but he can go out there and definitely go play physical. He's going to block you at every level. If he can go out there and get a safety, he's going to hit a safety too. But this is a good pick. I thought they could have done a lot better at getting another guy. But hey, they got a quality guy. When on the field, he's a tough player. A very, very tough player. But, the best ability is availability. He has to be available to be out there and play. And plus, I really thought that, center surprised me that they went and got a center on the offensive line when, like Ray said, there's so many defensive holes that we need to fix right now. I think cornerback, it was above beyond the point of emphasis as far as, going out there and filling holes. I mean, at this point, all we have is a guy that's 30-something years old playing out on the outside. He's the only one that consistently goes out there and plays and big play slay. He needs somebody opposite of him to handle these receivers in this division. There's 3 good receivers down in Dallas right now. The Washington football team has 2 good receivers. Now you look at the Giants; they got 3 good receivers too. We're going to need guys to cover these guys. I was cool with bringing Sayamalu in and he being an heir apparent to Jason Kelce. I guess they saw past that and they're going to keep Sayamalu at the guard position and put this kid in. But, this kind of threw me for a loop.
Ray, you had something to add?
Well, no, I pretty much agree with just about everything that Barrett just said. Humphrey, to me, was the best center I saw this year, I thought. And largely, he's got tremendous power. And anybody that saw the Oklahoma team this year, he was able to do things at the center position in terms of controlling guys on his nose, being able to block for the run, being able to get outside and do some of the Kelce type things to get out and lead plays on the edge, get to the second level. He looked to me like he had a pretty complete set of skills. And if you were looking at centers, that's kind of where I was looking. Again, Dickerson is a guy that he's played well, but you really can't look past the injury factor. I mean, it's very real with him, and including just coming off one in the last game that he played, the national championship game. So, the team has got, they have a very serious Alabama thing going. There's no question about that. And look, there's a lot to be said for that. I know that when Chuck Noll, and this is going back a ways, but when Chuck Noll began to rebuild the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that had never won, ever, nothing, when he came in and began rebuilding that team, one of the priorities he had when they went into the draft was he said, we're going to draft players from winning programs because this team has never won. They don't know how to win. And we're going to bring guys in from college programs where they did nothing but win. That's how we're going to change the culture of this team, by bringing in guys who have won their whole careers. We're going to build a locker room and a team full of guys like that. Pretty good philosophy. And it worked and for the Steelers, obviously, because they put together a team that dominated the NFL for a decade. But it really started with the idea that we're drafting players from winning programs. There's a lot to that. And I think the Eagles, and you're seeing it being applied here. Hurts has obviously started his career at Alabama. Smith, Devontae Smith, Alabama. Dickerson, Alabama, and Jeff Stoutland, clearly the offensive line coach, had an enormous influence in this selection. So, listen, if this kid can come in and stay healthy, he is a good player. But at this point in the draft, I'm a little surprised they're drafting at this position and not addressing their defense, because obviously they still have a lot of work to do on that defense.
The obvious elephant in the room is the future of Jason Kelce and how long he maintains the position as the Eagles starting center, considering bringing Landon Dickerson in. Last season, Carson Wentz was the starting QB. They drafted the quarterback in the second round. All of a sudden, Carson's gone a year later and Jalen Hurts is the starter. So there is a little bit of precedent there. Do you guys feel like this is suddenly Jason Kelce playing, Landon Dickerson playing apprentice to Jason Kelce to, be there in his stead when Kelce hangs him up, maybe soon, maybe after this season, Barrett?
I really thought that Sayamalu was going to be the heir apparent to moving in as center. I guess they like him more so at the guard position, left guard position. They got some stability there. But yeah, this is really shocking. We went out and got, Landon. Like I said, Landon's a good player. And like I said, the biggest thing is the biggest ability that'll be over his head is availability. He has to be out there. He has to stay consistently on the field and stay healthy. That'll be the only way, that, this kid could, not be in the lineup, is if he's not healthy. He checks all the marks as far as being a good NFL center. He can move fluently. He's challenged laterally as far as lateral movement. But hey, when you play center, you don't have to worry about that too much. You got a guard on each side of you. You talk about a guy that's going to go out there and be that leader in the locker room, a leader in the huddle. He's that guy. You know, he understands what his purpose is. His purpose is to be in the middle of that offense. He starts the play. He's the guy that, you know, gets things going. His balls being snapped is when everything gets going. You know, see, he takes that responsibility very seriously. You know, he knows how to make the calls. You know, he gets to the mic, finds the mic, and then the protection goes after that. Or on run plays, you know, he knows what a double team is, and how to use those double team blocks. But at the end of the day, he has to stay healthy and on the field. I mean, 6'6", 330 pounds, and can move the way he does. He's a mountain to move and get around, but he just has to stay on the field. He can even move out in space, get to the second level, but he needs to stay on the field. And that's the biggest thing. You know, you can't make the club in the tub. He has to take that seriously and make sure he gets his body in a position where he can stay out there consistently if he's called upon. And Kelsey, you know, we saw Kelsey. Kelsey was held together with, you know, bubble gum and duct tape. You know, it was a lot of times I didn't think he was going to be on the field. I mean, when he hyperextended his elbow, his snapping elbow in the game and still came back. I mean, this guy's bionic. You know, I don't know where they make guys like him anymore, you know, especially him being a smaller guy. But he stayed on the field, showed that he's a baller. If this kid learns from him and gets, you know, some of the toolage that Kelsey can give him, he could be a good player. But the one thing I want him to really, really understand is stay on the field.
Hey, Ray, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about Jason Kelsey, an all-time Eagle. Are you feeling like this could be the writing on the wall that his swan song is imminent?
Well, imminent in the sense that it could be this year. Right. I mean, this could very well be his last season. They weren't even sure that he was going to come back to play this season.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if it's not this year, it's probably next year. I mean, he's coming to the end of the line, and he's not going to, when the time comes, whether it's this year or next year, he's not going to be an easy guy to replace. I mean, he is next to Bednarik, who's an all-time great player, probably the greatest player in the history of the franchise. Jason Kelsey is probably the best center this team's ever had, which is a pretty amazing thing to say about a guy that was a sixth-round draft choice. But he's been that good, and he's been that durable. And he's been to a couple Pro Bowls already, and probably could have been to a couple more. So you don't want to replace him with just a guy. I mean, they wanted to probably go get another player who had the ability to be a Pro Bowl player. And, you know, this guy he has a pedigree. He played at Alabama and was a real good player. But I am concerned, we've talked about it a lot, is the injury history, which you can't really overlook. And the other part of it is, man, there are a lot of good defensive players still on the board right now. Good defenders, a couple good corners. Again, I'll mention Asante Samuel Jr. I really thought when Asante didn't go right here at the top of this draft and he was still on the board, I was in my own mind thinking, I'll bet it's going to be Asante Samuel Jr.
Absolutely.
Because, I think he would have come right in and played this year at that other corner. I think he's a little small. I mean, I wish he were a little bit bigger, but he has a lot of his father's instincts, a lot of his father's quickness. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to start in this league this year right away. And that right now is still, there's a vacancy sign right there as far as that other cornerback position opposite Slay. I thought they could have answered it there. There are a couple good pass rushers that are still on the board, and there's a couple good safeties that are still on the board. So I really thought this pick was going to go defense. So that's why this one took me a little bit by surprise. It sort of speaks to the idea that I guess the Eagles believe, and they got a lot of picks. We know that. They got a lot of picks coming up. And they feel like, and we said this last night, there is good depth at the cornerback position. There are going a lot of pretty good corners. We're seeing some of them start to go now, but they're good corners, and maybe you can get one the next round, and maybe you can. But I thought that this was a spot where you could have gone and gotten one right now and had that area sealed up, and then worried about your center a little bit later. So this pick, I have to say, this pick sort of took me by surprise.
Remember, they traded the 84th overall selection to the Dallas Cowboys in order to move up to 10 to draft Devontae Smith. So that's one less pick the Eagles have this season. Barrett, when we spoke before we went live, you thought DB was the way that the Eagles will go as well, echoing Ray's sentiments. And Howie Roseman was really lauded for the way he maneuvered the draft and read the board last night and was able to bring Devontae Smith here to Philadelphia, do you feel like he might deserve a little bit of criticism for this move, or do you see it as more of a glass half full situation?
I will say this, we know as people that watch the game, me and Ray, we watch the game. We're very familiar with a lot of these players that are in this draft. And, we also know what the Eagles have, inside the locker room right now. And I just didn't think center is the right move right now, considering the fact that we have somebody that could be an heir apparent for him right now with NFL experience and that knows the system in Seumalo. Seumalo can be a great center also when called upon. So I didn't.
So are we maybe considering he might play another position? Is that a possibility?
He can play guard. I mean, he has the size of a guard, but I mean, he's played center in Alabama, so, I think that's going to be his natural position. And at this point, he can learn from one of the best in the league. But, at the end of the day, we know the needs of the Eagles. And we also know that, cornerback just is something that they need in the worst way. Unless they're going to go out in the free agency, they needed a cornerback now, high in the draft. If not number one, at least number two. And
that would be my next question. Yeah. Would you feel like that will be a need they could serve on the open market?
Well, I think that's what they're going to have to do because they need somebody to come in. And like I said, with the weapons that just entered into, this division, they need some guys that can go out there and not just cover a number two receiver because Slay has the number one receiver, but they need somebody that can cover number one because there's two number ones in Dallas right now. There's two number one receivers in Dallas. There's two number one receivers with the Giants. There's two number ones with the Washington football team. Samuels is now there. You go up, I-95. These guys aren't playing with us right now. They need to go out and have somebody that can cover. I'm tired on third down that I have to sit there and get, butterflies in my stomach because of third down. I'm worried about them not being able to cover, these big time receivers. And that's not me just, giving these guys, a lot of praise, but they deserve it. Their Lamb is good, very, very good. You got, Amari Cooper. He's there. He's good. You go up to 95, what they have. Sterling Shepard being the slot, he's not even their number one wide receiver now. They went out and got them, the kid from Detroit. So they have some speed there also with Ross coming from Cincinnati. We need people that can cover these athletes. And at this point, we don't have enough in our barn to field, a good enough defense to stop these teams.
Ray, I'll give you the final say here before we wrap things up. Do you feel like they can balance out this selection, which was maybe a bit of a reach in some estimation, with the other picks that they make in the draft to kind of bolster the defense that way?
Oh, sure. I think, well, obviously that's what they're going to have to do because they still do have needs in the defensive side that have to be addressed. They just have to be. And they do have a lot of picks, so they can go there.
And the salary cap is tight, so the free agency market won't be as bountiful as maybe in years past.
I mean, they can, and I'm sure that internally that's what they're discussing. But boy, to me, this was the spot to do it. I mean, there were some really good. I mean, I have 4 defensive players on my board that were available to start tonight that I had as first round picks last night. I mean,
is Barmore one of those people?
Yeah, that I had. I thought were going to be first round picks last night. They were still on the board to start today. Defensive players who I thought could have come in and helped this team right now. Dickerson. I mean, you addressed the point, Dan, about could he play another position? He has. He played some right guard for this team. And size is not a problem. I mean, the guy is 6'6". In fact, he almost looks too big to be a center.
Yep.
But he finished his career as a center, and he was very good there. When he's played well. He's a very powerful guy who moves that large frame really well. But the injury factor, to me, is a major concern. I kind of think this is a little high to be drafting him. As I said, if I had been with the Eagles, I would have gone to the defensive side right here because there's some players right now that I think could have stepped right in and played immediately. Dickerson, even if he comes in and he's healthy, isn't going to beat out Jason Kelce this year anyway. So I would have gone and tried to get myself a defensive player that I thought could have lined up and played from day one this season.
That's what picks 1 through 3 are. Picks 1 through 3 have to come in and contribute. They have to play. And I don't think first, second, or third round at this point, first rounder, he'll go out there and play. Second round, he's going to sit a little while.
Well, hopefully the Eagles provide more answers than questions, because we're hoping to hear from them after the drafting is done here in rounds 2 and 3. Maybe they will speak. They spoke last night, but only place we can get answers to these questions is from the Birds front office. And I keep it locked on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com and the My Teams app for all of the latest details of the Eagles 2021 draft. For Ray Didinger and Barrett Reaction, brought to you by PJ Wheelahan.